folks, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the tune The Old Bush. This is a D-Mixolydian tune, and it's pretty common in sessions, but it's an awesome tune because it has those really distinctive C naturals in them and a whole lot of lift. So anyway, I recently heard a fantastic version of this tune by the band The Freewheeler, making really good use of some technique from North Connacht. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, sort of applying a North Connacht accent to this tune. So here's the basic tune. So that's the basic tune. Alright, so what do I mean by a North Connacht accent? Well, there used to be a lot of regionalism in flute playing, particularly before the 1960s folk revival, where a Clare player might sound different than a Dublin player, who would sound different from a Roscommon player. And at least as I see it, these different regional accents are kind of being replaced by this monolithic, very straight-ahead flute style, which I think is sad because there's a lot of cool stuff you can draw from for inspiration from these old styles. So anyway, where the counties Sligo, Mayo, and Roscommon all intersect, that's kind of the general area I'm focusing on. That's produced a ton of fantastic flute players. So perhaps the first thing you'll notice is that they're not hiding their breath over there. The breath to them is like the sound of the pick on a guitar string. It's percussion, and it adds a lot of color. So they're not particularly concerned with long phrases either. You're going to hear big huffs and puffs, as well as some overblown embellishments that are going to make all kinds of cool barks and chirps. And I think this emerged because they were often just one or two musicians playing for a whole bunch of dancers in a kitchen, and so you have to emphasize the beat, I think, a little more than perhaps you would otherwise. But anyway, so here's a couple things that make the beat really clear. Here's the first phrase. And so that's a big northern thing right there, right off the bat. Two notes in a breath instead of a long roll. So instead of, you do. And as we move further into the tune, you can see there's kind of a call and response aesthetic that develops. Like, here's the call, and here's the response. Call, response. And so North Connacht flute players will emphasize this a lot. They really dig into this sort of call and response way of playing with a lot of, I don't know, just very breath-heavy, rhythmic kind of ways of interpreting it. So, like, so anyway, to build tension even more, one thing I like to do is to wait to hit that sweet note, that G, until a little longer. This is going to set up sort of some tension, like this. So holding the A kind of simulates a double stop on the fiddle, or kind of like a drone from the pipes, especially if the room has some reverb. Kevin Henry in particular uses this to great effect. So I definitely recommend checking out, I think One's Own Place is the name of his record. I'll link it in the description. So anyway, some other stuff you can do, you can drop down to the low octave. So meshes nicely in a session because nobody else is occupying those frequencies, and you get this really nice deep sound. So anyway, moving on to the B part, perhaps the most obvious thing you could do is a little run up. So you can do that little C sharp run up. So it's a C sharp on the way up and a C natural on the way down. And this is another fun thing to do, is you can bend that C natural. Paddy Keenan does this a lot in the Bothy band, especially on the tune The Pipe on the Hob. Again, I'll link that in the description. So that just kind of emphasizes a little bit of rhythm, builds some tension. It's just a cool sound. And you can also break that little F sharp roll into a thing on the end of the B part. So that's another thing. Breaking that F sharp roll can add a nice little kind of rocking back and forth sound to it. And you can bounce your finger to make kind of an F whole cut, but it's not necessary. And you can also pair it with a little figure on E, like, let's see. That's kind of another cool thing to do, instead of a straight stepwise walk down. So anyway, with all that in mind, here's how I play the tune. So anyway, I guess that's really it for this episode. There's some great resources in the description if you're interested in these old North Country flute players. You can also hear the original track by the Freewheeler, which I based my version of this tune on. And if you want to hear more of my music, you can check me out on SoundCloud, or my friend Alex did this really cool project in the kind of in the vein of the Transatlantic Sessions, which is also linked below. So anyway, see you next time.